Hi friends, and welcome back to AmandaMuse. So today I'm going to be talking about the incredibly controversial article that was written in the Maclean's magazine, and I never buy magazines, or I rarely do, and I saw this one and I was like, we gots to talk. So if you're new and haven't seen this popping around, or you're not on Facebook because it was all over Facebook, this is the I wish I never had kids, there I said it article. And I spoke about it over on Instagram, and a lot of you were messaging me, and I've got a lot of your comments that I'm actually going to share today, anonymously, of course, with your approval. And I think it needs to be talked about because I think it's so much bigger than what this article is suggesting. Like, there's a lot more, there's layers to this. And so let's talk about it. If you're new, I would love it if you would consider subscribing. I put out videos 3 times a week, and yeah, we talk about stuff, life through my lens, but also just important subject matter as a mother, as a woman, as a human being on the earth. So let's get started. Okay, where to begin? I have been kind of hesitant to make this video because I feel like, you know, when I do share on the internet, I try to do it in such a way that doesn't offend or judge, you know, groups of people, because it is not one size fits all, and my experience is not the same as your experience. So I try to be very inclusive and open-minded, but when it comes to this article, I am not on board, like, at all. So you've got this big, you know, I regret having children, and what it talks about, and I feel like there's a couple of different elements to the article, but it starts with, you know, there being this large group of women who feel like it's very unacceptable, or they're not welcome to express their opinion about having regret being a mother. And so they talk about, they have Facebook groups where they're sharing this kind of information, and they don't feel like they can confess this stuff to their friends. And then basically, I feel like the point of this is that they feel like they should be allowed to express this regret. And the part that I'm really having trouble with is that they feel they should be able to express it to their children, and that it should just be public information. And that's where I don't agree. As I was saying in the beginning, in terms of opinions, in terms of lifestyle choices, basically anything in life is never going to be one size fits all. What works for me is not going to work for the person next door. That is just that's just life. However, when it comes to having children and having a family, there are certainly a few ways that people go about having families, and most of it is by choice. So right off the bat, I want to take out situations where, you know, you became pregnant because of assault or because of being forced into situations, and you chose to keep that child, or, you know, all of those kind of, like, I don't want to say fringe, but all of those kind of variables that, you know, are in the, I understand why you feel that way, and we can all understand, because of abuse, because of not having a choice, because of cultures forcing you to do certain things. All of that I kind of want to take off the table. You know what I mean? Because I want to talk about the typical people that they're referring to in this article, who are feeling this way. This is a Canadian magazine, and so let's just stick with, they're talking about Canadians in a whole. The thing is, you knew what you were getting into. You know, this isn't like getting a puppy or a fish that's only going to live for like 3 to 6 years or something. Not that puppies live 3 to 6 years, but you get what I'm saying. Like, this is a choice that you chose. You understood what the expectations were, and you understood what, to a certain degree, what it was going to be like to be a mother. And I mean, regardless of our relationships with our own mothers, because I can only speak from my experience, but, you know, I had a very difficult relationship with my own mother growing up. However, we also didn't have a lot of money growing up. So I knew what it was like to have a harder style of upbringing in a Western culture, where the poverty level is different than poverty in other countries. So, you know, I understood what some of the hardships could be. I also understood that becoming a mother meant, yes, that this was going to be a rather selfless experience in my life, that it was a time for me to put other people before myself. I knew that. And I consider myself to be a fairly, like, young mother. I had my first child at 27, youngish. I was fully aware of what I was getting into. Was it hard? Hell yes. And it still is hard on the regular. When we go back to, like, the really early days, like the first year with my first child, which, by the way, I have two, all I can remember saying to my husband, like, oh over and over was how tired I was. I was so tired, and I just felt like I would never sleep again. Was I ever going to get sleep again? But like motherhood tends to happen, as you go through it, you start to realize that it comes in phases, that it goes in chunks, and that, yeah, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And then when you've accomplished a certain chapter, a new chapter begins. And it's just like the cycle. And you realize that you are a caregiver, oftentimes putting other people before yourself for a fairly long time. Like, that is just kind of how it goes. So I'm confused by this article where people feel so entitled to just be so blatantly like, I'm not into it anymore. Sorry, what? Like, this isn't something you just get to like piece out in halfway through. Like, this is a commitment. What is happening that as a culture, we're having a hard time understanding that there are moments in life where you put other people before yourself and your needs? I'm confused. Now, not to be confused with being a martyr, because here on my channel, I've spoken about the importance of self-care and taking care of yourself, like that whole, like, you got to put your, air mask on before you put the person's next to you so that you're fully functioning and able to help them. You can't give from an empty well kind of thing. There's a couple variables. So there's that whole element that I want to talk about a little bit more about, this like selfishness, entitlement, that seems to be a thread going through this article. And the other element is like not feeling like you are supported as a mother and your role in your family, and feeling like you are just like, this is not what you signed up for. And so I feel like there's two different, points that are trying to be made. And then the last point that I want to talk about is expressing these feelings and thoughts to your children, which is like, makes me mad. So breaking it up into those three pieces, the first part talking about, I want to know what you guys think. Like, is there a shift happening right now culturally where we feel like, we are so self-absorbed that we have a hard time thinking about other people's feelings and other people's needs, where, we're becoming more and more selfish. We need recognition, we need approval, we need all of these things, and social media supports that. If you have a soapbox that you want to get on, there apparently is an audience for everything. There has to be a balance between self-care, being concerned about your own welfare and your feelings and making those a priority, but also considering the feelings of people around you and how your decisions will impact them, and where sometimes it's best to keep certain things as inside thoughts. Like, you're entitled to feel like motherhood is hard. You're entitled to feel like, and have weeks at a time where you're like, this is like really hard, and your body is fatigued, you're maxed out, you're working at a full-time job, you're coming home, you're taking care of your kids, or perhaps you're a stay-at-home mom and it's not what you envisioned. Maybe you gave up a career for a time period to be with your children. Like, there's so many variables, but at the end of the day, it's a short time period, so I'm struggling with this because I don't want to dismiss feelings of isolation, of loneliness, of, how difficult it is. And maybe that's part of the problem, where maybe people's Instagrams, where it looks so perfect, and they're, the way that people are making motherhood seem like it's, like it's a new bag or something, or it's some sort of accessory that's like, oh, I'm a mom now. Like, no, that it is hard. Just referring to social media, is it the responsibility of the creator to create a more authentic view of motherhood? I don't know. Or is it the responsibility of you as the person, the consumer, to be aware of what you're consuming, to pay more attention, to have a more wide variety of creators? Because again, I feel like there is a place for that, like, perfection, but in small doses, if you have a hard time consuming that. And then, there's an element of mental health where, postpartum blues and depression is a real thing. And I'm not dismissing that at all. I had a very slight degree of it looking back. I didn't have to get medication for it. However, looking back, I'm like, maybe I should have. For those of you that are new to my channel, I had my children overseas without family, with minimal friends at the very beginning. It was very hard. I had a traumatic first-time birth experience. Like, I kind of had all the check boxes for this is going to be some crazy shit times. But in the same moment that it's crazy and chaotic, it's also beautiful and loving. And this is the life I chose. This is where I'm having an issue. What happened to the part where you agreed to this, and now this is your responsibility, and you are not a victim in the situation here. This is like a life you chose. Therefore, step up and be the parent that you said you were going to be. Okay? So there's that. And like I said at the beginning, I'm taking out those variables that are like severe depression, abuse, all of those things that we can't, compare a regular life to, right? Now we jump to the second part where I feel like there's a common thread amongst a lot of these women, not all, but a lot, who feel like they are not supported. They do not feel like they have the support of their spouse or family in this journey. And I really have said this, and I feel like I preach this a lot, is that it takes a village. You need support in this journey, whether it's friends in real time, a support group online, family to help you out, babysitters, whether you're getting help for free or it's like a barter system. Maybe you are babysitting your friends' kids and your friends will babysit your kids every now and then to give you a break. Like, it's a whole layered thing. And I know I talk about a lot of this on my channel, so it's hard to like just talk about it in one small video, how I feel about this particular subject matter, because I feel like it's a doozy. And if you are in the dynamic where you are, a married couple and you have a partner who's helping you through this parenting life, and they are not stepping up and helping you where you feel you need help, yeah, that is really crappy, and I'm sorry that that's happening, and I hope that there is some sort of light. But again, your kids didn't ask to be brought into that specific house, to be brought into that specific dynamic, and I do feel that it is our responsibility as parents to change the perspective. Like how you're trying to get your kids to eat vegetables and they don't want to eat anything green, and you're like, I gotta come at this from a different angle. Can we spin this to be a little bit more positive? I feel like that's parenting in a nutshell. There's gonna be hard moments, there's gonna be hard times, but you need to be that rock, that unconditional love and support that brought these people onto the earth and who they seek out love and all of those things from. You're that person. That's your job. No matter what's going on around you, you need to make it better. If you're in a difficult financial situation, I've been there growing up, there are ways to make things better. But all of that to say, you are also a human being. You're entitled to feel exhausted. You're entitled to feel like, what's going on? I didn't sign up for this difficulty, and I get that. The beautiful thing about life is it's constantly moving forward and it's constantly changing, and that's one thing you can constantly guarantee on is change. So what you're feeling right now, you may not feel in 6 months. Your situation may change because you may be working towards a solution. If you're in a marriage with a partner who is not cooperative, not helpful, maybe it's time to rethink that dynamic. But at no point is that the fault of the children. Is that their responsibility? I don't feel that that's their responsibility at any point. That's our issue as parents. That's our issues as adults to handle. It's also our responsibility to raise children who are going to be themselves responsible, capable of, going to school and getting jobs and understanding responsibility, how they can contribute to the family. There was some comments here, like one of the people was saying, she had 2 children and they left her exhausted and bankrupt and she couldn't wait for them to leave home. What? Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I don't want my kids living at home when they're 30. Nope. But I'm going to set them up to the best of my ability with the tools in place so that they aren't living at home when they're 30, that they are seeking life and adventure and independence from me. That's my whole goal. That's kind of the point, right? There is no rule book to parenting, but there's a rule book to being a good person and a compassionate person and a loving person. So what's happening in this article? And the last element, there's so much more I can say on all of those things, but I don't want this to be like a 35-minute video because we all got shit to do. So the third thing, and I feel is the most important freaking element of all of this, is how this decision to be vocal about regret, how it will impact the children. So that's the one thing. My biggest complaint about this whole article is I do not feel it addressed that issue. It just said, yeah, you're entitled to say what you want and feel what you want, okay? is there consequence? With every action, there is a reaction. Like, hello? Like, can you interview more than one person? So they interviewed one, if I'm not mistaken, one person. They interviewed one woman, and she defends her, it says here, defends her mother's choice to publicly express her maternal regret. Okay, one person. She looks to be about 17. I'm sorry, it's 17. You're just on the cusp of how the shit of your childhood is going to impact your adult life, okay? Like, no. I don't even know your brain is fully formed yet. You support your mother's decision to express her maternal regret because you support your mother unconditionally in a lot of situations. You know, the bond between parent and child is so strong at times, and I can speak from experience that even when your parents do stupid things, bad things, we still want to forgive them and love them regardless. This is the bond. This is the problem. This is why I have such an issue with this article basically saying, yeah, do what you want and say what you want. It's all good. It is not all good. You cannot just walk around and say, I can't even utter the words because I'm really genuinely worried my daughter's going to hear me. Honestly, like that is how much it upsets me that people feel like it's okay to say that. Oh, and the part that there's a weird disconnect in here is they're like, these women are not saying they don't love their children, but they're saying they regret being a mother. I don't see how those are two separate things. If you would like to enlighten me, feel free to comment below. I'm still not going to agree with you though. I'm going to warn you right now. To me, they're inseparable. That's like saying, I love winter, but I hate snow. What? Like, it makes no sense to me. I was like laughing when I was just like, what are you talking about? I'm happy to have a good, debate about it. I love a good, healthy conversation with differing opinions. Like, ask my dad. We're constantly having like discussions about stuff. Ask my dad, ask anybody that knows me. Oh my God. I love to just get deep and like dissect things. And so I'd gone to Instagram and I'd said, okay, I have an issue with this article. It is not one size fits all. I understand it's hard and it's difficult. And I think you are entitled to feel certain things. I just don't think you're entitled to tell everybody about them. Your therapist, go for it. A close confidant, go for it. Your child, no, that is wrong. So I went on Instagram and I said to you guys, listen, I want to know if you had a parent tell you that they regretted having you, how did that make you feel? You're grown now. You're grown, you have emotional intelligence, you can look back at a situation and go, this is how it impacted me, so I wanted to know. And you guys got back to me, and I'm gonna read a few of the comments. We're just gonna go through them. And I'll try to go through these relatively quickly because there was a ton. In fact, it was kind of overwhelming emotionally for me to read how this had impacted you guys. Yeah, it was hard. One person said yes, their mother told her, and that she said her mother is totally unemotional and not caring, and I think that she regretted it because they never had a bond. She said she used to say when we were little she regretted it, when they were little. She says she doesn't feel sad by it, but I think it's because she says she doesn't have a connection with her mother anymore. Of all the people, every single one said they made them feel terrible and that it was an awful experience for them to hear that from their mother, except for one. Her mother did tell her that she regretted having her and her sister and her brother, and that she wished she had never had kids. However, now she's a great mom and grandmother, but she says, boy, did it bring about some low points. And so I said to her, well, what's your relationship like now? I'm really curious. And she said, it's actually good. She goes, I don't know where I'd be without her. She had very bad postpartum anxiety after both of her children. So this is the viewer. And she said she was, her mom was there every day to listen and cry and help her in every way. And she says, I think you just learn your parents are human and that you get frustrated, but you love them, but you don't always know how to express it in the best way. And that, she was honest about how she was feeling at the time. And although it may not have been appropriate, we learned how to deal and still grew close as a family. So even though she expressed this regret, the daughter, the viewer, even said it was not appropriate. Like, she didn't feel that it needed to be said. Another viewer said that her mother had expressed that she regretted motherhood and was mad. And this made the child feel hurt and unloved. And I said, that breaks my heart. And her response was, she goes, I know, she still struggles with it. And she wants to be a mom, and it makes you doubt your ability to love. This is devastating. Another viewer said her mother was the complete opposite and never expressed regret. However, did say that in life she had made mistakes and bad choices, but all of those things led to her having her children, which was the best things that could have ever happened to her, and that she would never go back and change anything because she wanted her. She wanted her children. That no matter what was going on the outside, that was like her shining light. It was like comment after comment, and how important it is to remind ourselves that words have power. Lots of power, how mothers have a lot of impact. We can affect our children greatly. A mother is so powerful and is at the root of a lot of our good things, bad things, the way we feel. Like, parents have such a strong hold on that. And I truly do think it's shameful for people to forget that. And I'll leave this last one here. She goes, her mother did, in fewer words, but yes, she did say that she regretted having children. And when I asked how this made this person feel, she said, it made me feel abandoned. It also helped me make sense of a lot of her behaviors. So I guess in a sense I needed to hear it, so I know there is a boundary. She says, my mother's love is not unconditional. And after evaluating many situations between the two of us as an adult, I have learned that she is still bruised from her relationship with her mom and has not yet healed. She goes, I won't end up like that. So I choose to do better for me and my children. My baggage will not be their burden. Honestly, it moves me. I will say that as a child, I had a nice childhood. Absolutely. I felt love, but I also felt a lot of sadness because my parents divorced when I was 7. I had a lot of issues with my mom, and those issues carried on until I ran out of my house at 19. My mom had a lot of mental health struggles that were undiagnosed in my childhood. She is much better now. And the crazy part is that even in the midst of all of her mental health struggles, all of the no money, lack of money, not getting paid enough, like when I think about the salary that my mom made and sustained our life on, it blows my mind because it was real low. And I didn't feel all that stuff. And I also never felt as though that she regretted me. Not a once. No matter the difficulty she had with my dad and my dad with her, there was never a moment where either of my parents have ever said, I regret having you. My mom had me young too, in my opinion. She was like 21 and pregnant and 22 when she had me. That is young. Never once regretted it. Basically, the long story short is, at no point did my mother ever utter the words that she regretted having me. And I value that and I appreciate that because I know she doesn't feel that for any of her children. And it's like, I don't understand how you could say those things. I don't understand. If down the road, my relationship with my husband, something were to happen and we ended up parting ways, I'm never going to regret my children. Like, I don't regret things in my life. I don't have that bone in me. There are things in my life where I'm like, yeah, I could have done something different. But I do feel that as though things happen in life to get you where you are, and it's part of the journey. But I don't think in terms of like, I regret things and am held back on those things. I take what's before me and I make fucking lemonade. Do you know what I'm saying? And honestly, I felt like telling every woman in this thing, like, pull up your big girl pants, get your shit together, get a therapist, and move the F on. Do not tell your children that. Like, your job in this world is to be loving to your children. I feel like just because you can have children doesn't mean you should. And I'm firmly supportive of people who choose not to have children because they have some emotional intelligence and realize like it's not for them. Great, don't do it. You're not missing out. You're choosing your life and you're gonna live your best life however your best life is meant to be lived. With children, without children, 5 dogs, 12 cats, no dogs, on a boat. Like, I don't care. You do you, girlfriend. But at no point do you need to take the people around you down with you. You chose your life. You know what I mean? So it's a hard one. It's hard for me to see the other side of it. I will say that. Obviously, if you've watched this entire video, you'll know that I'm having a hard time to understand the other side of it. And I would love to know, if you do come from that other side and you do feel these feelings, first of all, I'm sorry that you feel those feelings because I don't understand them. My children are my biggest like source of love and joy and challenge. And I don't remember life before them. I do, and it was great, but this is where I'm supposed to be now. And there will be another chapter once they're grown. Like, I don't understand why you feel as though you're missing out so much. make changes. I have a hard time ending this video because I feel like there's so much more to be said. I know I could have brought up so many other things, but now I want to hear from you. I want to know, how you feel about all of this. If you disagree with me, I also want to know, because I'm open to discussion. If you feel like I'm missing a certain side of it, I would love to hear that. Leave me some comments below. Let's keep talking. Yeah, it's a touchy one. It's a touchy one. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in my next video.